All right, welcome back. This is your host, Malik Liberty, Unchained Frequency. Dunn versus Blumstein, 1972, right to travel, the court's holding in the Liberty versus License divide. Today's episode breaks down Dunn versus Blumstein, 405 U.S. 330, 1972, a landmark Supreme Court decision that reshaped constitutional protections for the right to travel and the right to vote. First, let's start with the official Supreme Court holding, exactly as the court framed it. The holding. The Supreme Court held that Tennessee's one-year state residency requirement and its 3-month county residency requirement for voter registration were unconstitutional. The court ruled that these requirements, 1, violated the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, 2, penalized the exercise of the fundamental right to travel, and 3, failed under strict scrutiny because the state lacked a compelling interest. In the court's own words, durational residence requirements penalize the exercise of the constitutional right to travel. Dunn versus Blumstein, 405 U.S. 330, 338, 1972, is available at law.cornell.edu and supreme.justia.com. The court applies strict scrutiny, the highest constitutional standard, in Tennessee's law could not survive. The court concluded the right to vote is too precious, too fundamental to be burdened or conditioned. Now let's talk about the constitutional principles at the heart of this case. 1. Equal Protection Clause. 14th Amendment. The law treated new residents differently from long-term residents, creating two classes of citizens. The Supreme Court ruled that voting restrictions based on residency length trigger strict scrutiny because they discriminate against people exercising a fundamental right. 2. Due Process Clause, 14th Amendment. The right to vote and the right to travel fall under the protections of substantive liberty. Long waiting periods burden liberty without due process. 3. Fundamental right to travel. The court reaffirmed that the right to travel is a fundamental constitutional right. This principle builds directly on Shapiro versus Thompson, 394 U.S. 618, 1969. The court held that states may not impose penalties on the right to travel, and laws that do so must pass strict scrutiny. Dunn explicitly quotes and extends Shapiro, confirming states cannot penalize citizens for moving from one state to another. A law penalizes travel if it creates a deterrent or disadvantage to people who change states. The Supreme Court in Dunn said Tennessee's law punished mobility by stripping new residents of the right to vote. Now let's tie this case directly into our ongoing series, License versus Liberty. Does government regulate liberty, or does it attempt to convert liberty into license privileges? Liberty, not license. The Florida State University Law Review explains the distinctions clearly. Fundamental rights are inherent liberties, not state granted privileges. Dunn reinforces this because Tennessee attempted it to license voting through waiting periods, turning a constitutional right into a permission based system. The Supreme Court shut that down. Suspicions of membership tests. The court rejected laws that treat newcomers as outsiders, unqualified to exercise rights until they prove themselves. This is exactly what residency requirements do. They create a membership test for citizenship. Strict scrutiny as a liberty shield. The Tennessee Bar Association highlights that strict scrutiny acts as a shield protecting liberty when the government attempts to regulate or restrict it. Dunn applies strict scrutiny aggressively, and it destroyed the state's attempt to condition liberty on residency durations. Dunn proves that when the state tries to turn a fundamental right into a license privilege, the Constitution rejects it. Liberty wins, license loses. The right to travel without government interference. Let's explain how this case supports the fundamental right to travel and how governments continue to interfere with it while denying they do. 1. Dunn builds directly on earlier cases. Again, from Constitution.congress.gov, Shapiro versus Thompson established that states cannot penalize interstate travel. Dunn versus Blumstein strengthened this principle and applied it to voting laws. 2. The penalty concept. A state cannot directly stop travel, so it does something else. It imposes penalties, lost benefits, loss of voting rights, loss of registration access, waiting periods, ID restriction, delays in exercising rights. Dunn ruled these penalties unconstitutional. 3. Interstate versus intrastate travel. Dunn specifically protects interstate travel, the right to move freely between states. Although the court did not decide interstate travel in this case, the logic strongly supports freedom within a state as well. 4. Modern residency. The same tactics Tennessee used in the 1970s are still used today. Dunn's reasoning undermines modern attempts to restrict mobility for students, military families, people who relocate for work, low-income individuals, digital age, migratory workers. States still impose residency rules that function as modern penalties on movement. 5. Government denial versus reality. States routinely deny they restrict travel, yet they do. Delay access to rights, require new documentations, demand residency proofs, withhold public benefits, block voting, pose time-based penalties, etc. Dunn exposes the truth. Any disadvantage placed on a citizen because they exercised freedom of movement is unconstitutional. So I'm going to give you some citations resources here so you can go and read this for yourself for all my listeners. It's very imperative, important that you do, so you can get a better understanding. Because I'm only doing my own due diligence research and reading this from my notes and what I've gathered. But you got to make sure you do your own due diligence and research. It's very important that you do. Don't just take what I say. You have to read, people. That's the foundation of everything, is your reading and comprehending to the best of your abilities. So the primary case in this text I'm going to give you the resources here is Dunn versus Blumstein. It's going to be 405 U.S. 330-1972, and you can go to Cornell Law School, which is law.cornell.edu/Supreme Court Justia. Okay. Oyez, or oyez.com, if I'm saying that right. OYEZ, oyez.org, sorry for that. And then you have the Constitution annotation. Here's right to travel, equal protection, and strict scrutiny. Okay, you can go to constitution.congress.gov. All right. You can look at the historical and legal for the penalty concept at Library of Congress, which is tile.loc.gov. And then you have your scholarly articles as well, too, from Liberty, not licensed, that I just quoted from Florida State University's Law Review, which is ir.law.fsu.edu. And also Suspicious of Membership Tests, which is FSU Law Review. And Strict Scrutiny as Liberty Shield, Tennessee Bar Association. You want to go to https://tba.org. Modern Travel Restriction, Mobile Population Sage Publications. You can read that also at https://edge.sagepub.com. You can find everything that you need there to enhance your knowledge on this, because it's very critical and very important that we understand the right to travel. The only time you need a driver's license is when you're in a commercial venue. You can't be pulling a semi-truck or a tow truck or a wrecker or whatever they call that other tow truck, flatbed, or any type of these heavy machinery or equipment without a driver's license. You can't do that. Now, if you're traveling in your private conveyance, your private automobile, you don't need a license. Once again, I'm not an attorney. I'm not affiliated with the Bar Association. Okay. I'm just presenting the facts and evidence of what I've researched. But once again, do your own due diligence of research. I'm your host from Unchained Frequency, Malik Liberty. No flair, no fluff, just straight facts.